You are listening to the Game Like Training podcast, where we talk about golf practice, golf learning, golf psychology, the PGA Tour, college golf, golf club fitting, golf clubs, literally everything golf. Isn't that right, Eric? We try to bring on guests from all over the world and in all of these different areas that really can help us become either better golfers or better golf coaches. Hey, I'm your host, Matthew Cook.
And I'm your co-host, Eric Zeigel. And here at GLT, we love helping people and we love golf. That combined has driven us to document and create this podcast where, like Matthew said, we try to bring on some of the industry leaders in different domains to not only help golfers coach better, but to help players play better.
Yes.
Excited about the podcast today, Matty.
Today is awesome. We have an incredible person joining us today. He is a world-renowned golf instructor. He's sought after all over the world for his the help that he's given players, taking their games from beginner to expert levels of performance. His knowledge and insight in the industry is phenomenal, and we're lucky to have him talking to us today, since he's also sought after when it comes into the realm of club fitting. So we have today Kevin Sprecher, PGA golf professional, Director of Instruction at Sleepy Hollow. He's a Golf Magazine Top 100 teacher, and he was also named the Met Section Teacher of the Year. Correct me if I'm wrong, that was last year, right, Kevin?
That's correct.
And he's also leading up one of 4 regional fitting centers in the country. Kevin, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate your time and energy with us on the show today.
Well, Matt, Eric, thank you for having me. I appreciate the offer to be on your show.
Awesome. So I think I wish I would have got it on camera and on film what you were just telling me a few minutes ago. Can you give us a little bit of a background about you and how you got into this, how you got sought after as a club fitting?
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, club fitting, it's always been interesting to me as we're talking about. I've always liked the technical aspect of golf, whether it be teaching or fitting, trying to figure out the why and how to change the why and make the golfer better, and trying to figure out how is the golfer affecting the club and how does the club affect the ball. And, in club fitting, we're not really changing the golfer. We got to make the club work better for the golfer. So I like the challenge of trying to find the right head shaft combination, whether it be loft or weight or, different aspects of club fitting to help the golfer. One of the things that's helped me teach better is understanding about equipment and how equipment can affect the swing. On the flip side, one of the things that helps me be a club fitter is being a teacher and understanding how the golf swing can affect the club. So the kind of marrying the two have really helped, on both sides. So it's kind of nice. Plus, from teaching a lot, the club fitting is kind of a nice respite from the teaching part and using a different part of my skill set to, in life. So it's kind of a nice balance for me between teaching and fitting.
Can you, great, that was great. Can you tell us what your sort of process is? Like when someone's coming to you for a fitting, like what does that look like for the person from start to finish? Because I remember back in the day when I was going through my PGA, there was this, you interview the person beforehand, you got to ask all these questions, and then you check this, then second you check that, and they had it quite this rigid structure of giving a club fitting session. What's your overall take on that? What do you go through?
Well, I definitely do an informal interview process. Part of coming to a club fitting, what I find is people, they're excited to come for a fitting, but they're a little bit nervous in the fact that they're actually going to be watching, or someone's going to be watching them hit balls. Some of my status in the golf industry tends to make it a little bit more difficult because I know I'm a teacher too, so they get a little bit nervous, or golf 100, top 100 teacher, whatever, watching them, so they get a little nervous. So I try to put them at ease at first, let them hit some balls, talk to them. Why are they here? What do they want to get done in the fitting? Is it new irons? If it's new irons, are they looking for something that just looks better or newer? or they want something that performs better. And if it performs better, they're looking for distance, they're looking for accuracy or a combination. I want them to leave what they're coming for. So there's an aspect to that. I definitely ask them their tendencies, ball flight stuff, because sometimes it doesn't always show up in a fitting. As you guys well know, what people do on the course isn't always the same as what they do on the range. And I ask them how far they think they hit their clubs, because that's something else. Someone comes in and how far do you hit a 7-iron? Right? Well, I hit it 170. I'm looking at my launch monitor. It's carrying 148. I said, well, is that carry or roll? And then they stop, and that's it. I always find it interesting. They have to stop and think about it, and they go, well, I hit it 170. So it ends at 170. Yes, it ends at 170. And that varies with different levels of players. Your more accomplished players, they come in and you say, well, how far do you hit it? And they say, well, I carry it 168.
Right.
Then I know I got somebody who's kind of has a little higher golf IQ. So some of it is okay. Well, here's what's going on today. You're hitting your 7-iron 148 on the range today. So we're going to go off of that number. And I always like to get a baseline with their clubs. What are they hitting with? And I inspect everyone's clubs. I look at wear marks on the sole of the club, on the face. You look at their grips. It's pretty amazing to me that your only connection between your body and the club is really the grip and how bad people's grips are. And it's the easiest thing to change in. It's the least expensive part of the club. For $10 a club, put on a new grip. I tell all my students, for $10 a club, start with a new grip, something fresh. It makes the club feel new. It's your connection. You tend not to hold onto the club too tight. So I always look at wear marks on the grips and stuff like that. It's kind of a side adjunct to that. I had a student last year who decided to put mid-sized grips on his club. So he thought that because it felt better to him. He started shanking it the next day. He comes to me and he goes, I can't hit it. I'm shanking. And I pull out his grip and he's got this real thick grip on there. I'm like, well, what'd you do this for? He goes, well, it felt good. I said, well,
how's it feel now?
I said, that's great, but you're shanking it. He goes, well, do you think it's the grip? I said, absolutely. I said, thick grips make you hold on to the club tighter. He kind of thought about it for a second. I give him just another club, and all of a sudden he started puring it again. So it's little things like that I always find pretty interesting. Golf, you guys know the golf swing's fragile. A change in the wind, a 1% slope difference, the ball moving a quarter of an inch further or forward can throw the golf swing into a tizzy. But having a club that has the wrong size grip on it can do the same thing.
That's a good point. And I think the issue in the golf industry is there's a lack of education for the players to understand the influence they have on that, because so many times they just see what the tour pros are using and they go out and they just buy it, whether it's shaft, club, whatever.
Everything. But to go back to your question, I went on a tangent there. So once we get a baseline, I show them their numbers. I like to have them at 4 or 5 shots. Let's see the average of what they're doing. I like to show them their dispersion. Good players tend to have a horizontal dispersion. All the balls going about the same distance, a little bit right and left. Players that aren't so good have a vertical dispersion, or a really big dispersion, but typically the ball's going long and short because they're missed hitting shots or whatever. So I like to show them, what their club is doing now. I look at launch and spin numbers, give them a little brief education about what the numbers mean. I think it's important that golfers understand what's going on. So in anything I'm doing, whether it's teaching or fitting, I like to explain things a little bit deeper so they understand the why, because I know it helps me. And I know golfers, everyone knows they're going to hit bad shots. They're going to do whatever, and they can accept that. But people get frustrated because they don't understand the why.
Yeah.
So I think in club fitting, I do the same thing. Well, why is your ball spinning too much? Well, it could be loft, it could be spin, or it could be the ball. It could be there's not enough friction on the face if we're talking about wedges, or it could be the wrong weight shaft or flex or anything. So I want them to understand the process of what we're going through. And then from there, we'll talk about, is there a specific brand that they're interested in? Even though we're a regional fitting center for Titleists, we do carry 7 different manufacturers, because I am at a private club, so we got to service the members in that respect. We talk about, are you looking for game improvement club, a distance club, more tour performance club. What do you want? And then we kind of go through the process from there.
That's cool.
Yeah, so so you do have a structure, but it's just a little bit more informal. You kind of see where it takes you based off of what this person's really looking for. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I have a process, but the customer's going to drive it.
Yeah, that's a good way. I'm right. I'm going to write that one down. That was good. Yeah. Quote that.
So I, like, similar to Matthew, I did fittings kind of back when I was in the golf club scene. Now I teach out of a green grass facility, but we're contractors to the club. And so I got, when I started to get really more into coaching and away from the golf pro side of the industry, I moved a little bit further away from fittings. And part of the reason being is I feel like they're changing stuff so frequently. Like, how do you tackle that? I guess what I saw as a problem, with staying up to date with all the information and all the technology out there. What are some good resources you use, and maybe some resources that people can look into?
Yeah, it really, it's slowed down a little bit, the advancement. I think manufacturers, whether it be ball or clubs, have kind of reached the last 5% of what they can do. 10 years ago, they're changing metals, they're changing weights, different things kind of going on. They're learning, technology's really coming along. Right now, I remember being at the Titleist ball factory, and what they're dealing with now is like microns of paint, how thick the paint is in certain areas, and they're measuring it within the dimple.
Yeah.
When I start hearing stuff like that, I'm like, all right, they've pushed the envelope. The ball's doing what it absolutely almost maximum can do. Now they're changing dimple patterns, or testing different materials. They're doing the same thing with clubs now. Like Callaway, they used a supercomputer to come up with 15,000 different iterations of their newest driver, which they said your home computer would take 34 years to compute what they did at Callaway to figure out this driver. Wow. That to me is unbelievable. I just went to one of their seminars, and they showed you the back edge of the face of their new flash driver, and the design of it. It looks like a Picasso with all the stuff that's going on back there. Obviously, it's just, you would never think of it. You would think it'd be just a flat piece of metal and whatever. It's absolutely not. And it changes for different lofts and for different things. It's unbelievable. So I personally rely on my equipment manufacturers, the reps themselves, to inform me what's going on. Sometimes I get my information from Golf WRX. They seem to be at the forefront of everything.
Yeah.
So you get the information from there, and then just talking with other people in the industry, even some tour pros, just to kind of get feedback on what they're seeing out in the field versus what the manufacturers say is helpful. But I think you're going to see in the next few years small little changes in equipment that are and in materials, like the new Titleist irons. I don't know if you've heard of their concept clubs. But they're using what they call a super metal in the face. It's got some real long technical term, and they don't let me know what it is. But basically, it's airplane landing gear grade quality steel. You can imagine how rigid that has to be if you think about an airplane landing. So they're using that in the face. So you think, God, something like that, it must be hard. It must not feel great. Well, I hit their Concept 2 irons, which is the blade look. And the idea behind it is it's a Titleist MB head chassis, or similar to it, that has the forgiveness of an AP2 and the distance of an AP3. So I'm like, wow, this is pretty interesting. So I put my own shaft in it, same length, matched it up to my 7-iron. I use an AP3. I hit it 9 yards farther.
Wow.
Now it hits them off the toe, hits them off the heel, and it performs similarly as my AP3, but it's a blade, looks great, and it actually feels better. So it's just stuff like that's pretty amazing to me, and what these manufacturers can do.
Right.
So
as you said, they're pushing the envelope now, aren't they? Like there's not much.
Where are they going to go in 5 years? You're like, oh, this is the greatest driver I've ever seen, or the greatest iron I've ever hit. How are they going to make this? How are they going to make me sell more irons in 2 more years when they come out with the new set? So it's pretty interesting. They obviously rely heavily on technology, and who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, no, that's crazy. The technology, I mean, even in 10 years, it's ridiculous how much it's changed.
Yeah. Well, look at what we're doing here. We're talking visually. You're in Atlanta. I'm in New York. We're talking like we're sitting next to each other doing an interview.
Yeah, it's cool.
Right?
Yeah. Kevin, do you do any putter fittings? Do you ever deal with that?
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, I'd love to know more about that. Yeah, is it the same process with putter fittings that you go through?
Pretty similar. Actually, I just did something with the Golficity guys for them for their podcast or before their podcast for their vlog stuff, and it is pretty much the same thing. They're coming in, what's going on with your putter. I use the Science in Motion Putt Lab to help with all my putter fittings. And same thing, now putters, there's a lot of visual stuff involved. So the type of head, there's different weighted, there's face balance where the toe and the heel, if you balance the putter on your finger, the toe and the heel will be level. And then there's different levels of toe hang, 30, 45, 60, 90 degrees of toe hang. So that affects face rotation. And I think one of the things that's completely misunderstood with toe hang is you think a player that likes to have a lot of arc needs a lot of toe hang, and that's not correct. Toe hang is more for release, not for the shape of the stroke, in my opinion. Someone might disagree. But there are different, there's straighter paths and there's different, there's an arc path. All strokes have an arc. It's just what level of it. Is it a small arc or a big arc? The lines on the putter affect visual. So how much offset you have can affect your aim. Where the line is can affect your aim. Whether they use a dot there or a line on the front or on the top or no line, can affect everyone's stroke. The weight of the putter affects it. I know there's some advancements in actually putter shafts. You wouldn't think the shaft of the putter is that important, but it does swing and it's got to flex a little. There's some things there, so torque and weight and kick and all that stuff, and the putter shaft's important. I don't go that into it because I'm limited in what I can do, but there are some really great putter fitters out there that can get into that kind of stuff. So we measure all that, and the same thing. Come in, get a baseline. What's going on? Why are you missing? We'll take a look, and then we'll kind of try some different things out to see what allows the players to aim correctly and aim consistently, and then create a stroke, a more consistent stroke.
Yeah, I would have never thought shaft with putting, but I guess there is some.
Oh, it's getting crazy now.
Right?
Yeah, the putting shaft world is now.
I mean, the feedback that you get from the ball through the head is through the shaft.
Yeah.
And the grip's also important because it also I'll flat out say it, I don't like big grips. I get why people do it, because if your hands get a little bit of shakiness, whatever, I understand it helps take the hands out. But if you don't need it for that reason, I definitely like a much smaller grip so you can get a little bit of feel in your hands, a little bit of hand. Your hands need to get involved in the stroke. If there's a little electricity or something going on where we need to quiet it down, fine, I get it. But I would rather change a grip position. I'll change someone's grip position first before I go to a big grip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's quite popular actually, isn't it now? So many golfers are going for the super stroke.
Yeah,
Grips,
3.0, 5.0, fatso.
Even call them fatsos.
Yeah.
And you saw it on tour for a while. I think you're starting to see tour players kind of back away from it a little bit.
Yep.
The big grips. It was like anything. There's the fad, but there's still the most popular grips are those really thin grips that like the ping putters used to come with, or the.
Yeah, I love my ping putter grip. It is the thinnest, softest, nicest feeling grip ever.
Rubber.
My favorite putting grip was Gripmaster makes a leather putting grip.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's kind of soft, gets a little humid out. It's got a little sticky to it. It's easy to hold on to. It's got a nice texture.
Yeah.
So it's.
So what's your favorite area to do fittings? Do you enjoy doing putter fit? Is it you enjoy doing all of it?
I actually enjoy wedge fittings.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wedge fittings.
I think wedge fittings are look. It's an important part of the game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, next to your driver and your putter, the next important clubs in your bag to me are your wedges.
Yeah, take us through that. What does a wedge fitting look like with you? Well, like, where do you go? Because surely you must take into consideration different different contexts. You know, different
Out of the rough,
positions out of the rough. Yeah, like talk us through that.
Absolutely. I'm fortunate at Sleepy Hollow. We have a pretty nice short game area, so I can hit off of tight grass. I can hit out of rough. I can hit bunker shots. I can hit up to 80-yard shots. But for wedge fittings, first thing is I'll encourage all of your listeners to take a look at their face, their wedge faces, and don't look at the grooves. The grooves are there to displace water, soil, whatever. They help with spin a little bit, but the micro grooves is what creates friction, and friction is what give players spin and control. And if you have a wedge that's kind of worn down a little bit, you start to see balls kind of shoot up really high and go end up a little bit shorter than normal. And that's when it's already too late. You've already worn through your wedge. It's time to you're late in replacing it. So I always evaluate that, and then we look at bounce. And I was fortunate to have Bob Vokey at the club last summer to do some wedge fittings with the SM7s. And one of the things that was interesting that he told me is he said about 50% of the players that use Vokey wedge use a high bounce wedge for their 56. Which to me was like, wow, you always have the impression high bounce goes for high handicaps, and it's no. Bounce actually can affect spin because when the bounce hits the club, when the ground, it forces the face down. Yeah. And you think of vertical gear effect, so the face turns down, the ball is going to spin up the face more.
Right.
Makes total sense. Mm. So I've become a little bit more aware of bounce on the clubs. And up here in the Northeast, our soil tends to be a little bit softer because it's not like down in the South where it's hard ground. So bounce helps with players like that. You've kind of heard the phrase "bounce is your friend," which I totally agree with. So we go through a process of, again, taking their wedge, how far do they hit it, look at the launch and spin conditions, looking for a launch between 25 and 35 degrees of launch, spin, kind of the higher the better. And then go from there. And then same thing, is it the face of the wedge, or is it the bounce, or the shaft is involved. The weight of the shaft can affect speed, affect angle of attack, and affect impact and stuff. So do they need a lightweight shaft, a heavyweight shaft to help produce the right distance and spin that they're looking for, and and go that way.
Yeah.
Cool. I think it's tough for a lot of people, isn't it, if they don't have the environment around them. Like, look, we're lucky as well. Like, we have it's not the best short game area, but we have one, and we can hit 60 yards, 70 yard pitch shots.
Yes, probably about 60.
Yeah.
I think, and I use premium balls. I use Titleist balls. Pro V's for the fittings. I've got Titleist provides me with Pro V1s and Pro VXs. So if I have a player coming in and they use one or the other, I can do a fitting with that ball so they can kind of see how the ball reacts on the green. I think most people try to get a ball for their driver because they want something that goes far. Like I had a guy come in the other day and he said he switched from the Pro V1 to the AVX because he felt it goes farther. I said, and it may, but can you hold a green with it? I mean, he kind of thought about it for a second. I said, and he didn't really know. And I know I've experimented with them, and I'm getting a little older. I turned 50 this summer, so my highs are getting a little bad. So I tried the AVX yellow ball last year, and it was great, easy to see. And in the beginning of the season, it was holding the green because the greens were soft. But as the season goes on, the greens dried out. I found my proximity to the hole, especially my wedges, was increasing. So I went back to the Pro V1, and I found, I was about 3 or 4 feet closer with the same kind of shot. Fortunately, Titleist came out with the Pro V1 in yellow this year, so I'll be able to use a Pro V1.
Yeah.
I'm willing to admit it out in the public. Yes, I'm going to use a yellow ball. As much as my buddies are going to give me a hard time, it's just easier to see. for distance. But wedge fittings with, if anyone's going to do a wedge fitting, if they can do it with their own ball, even if they go to a facility where they don't have their balls, bring a couple of sleeves of your own golf balls. Do a wedge fitting with your own ball.
Yeah,
that's cool.
No, I agree.
Yeah, and most people don't. I've never even considered that, and I really should. But I've never thought, oh yeah, most people are looking for a new golf ball because of distance. Like, not. They don't even consider the impact that it might have with the short game.
Yeah. If you want to do a ball fitting, you want to get fit for your approach. With your approach clubs, your 7, 8, 9 wedges. See how it reacts on the green.
Yeah.
From the information I get from Titleist is most balls perform similarly off of a driver. There's not a huge variation with drivers, but there's a huge difference when it comes to a club with some loft.
Yeah. Wow.
So do you have any rule of thumb as far as how long wedges typically are good for people?
No, I think it depends on. Well, I guess it depends on the player. I tell my good high school, college players, because they practice more with their wedges, they're gonna probably change their wedges twice a year.
Yeah.
I think you start the season with a fresh set of wedges, and then probably about 3 or 4 months into it, go ahead and replace them.
Yeah.
Because they're important for them. For your average golfer who's going to play, 20 to 50 times a year, your wedges can last 2 or 3 years. Unless you practice a lot with them. A lot of gap wedges will last longer. Your mid to high loft wedges are ones that are going to wear out a little faster. And again, it's not a huge expense. Wedges are the least expensive club in your bag. They're $150, $160. I mean, unless you go for some of these crazy like the PXG wedges are $650. That's a different level. But for your average golfer, the most of the brands are $150, $160. To change it out over, change them once a year. It's if you amortize it over the 4 or 5 months you're going to play, it's cost you $30 a month.
Yeah, it's a relatively small investment.
But it's going to it might save you 1 shot or 2 shots a round.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you play 40 rounds, that's 40 shots you get saved in a round, over a season. That could be the difference between shooting, 93 and 87 sometimes, or whatever, shots like that. So.
Yeah, it could have a significant impact. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I think on that note, I think we'll wrap up. That's good. I'm excited to get this one out to everybody. No doubt there's a lot of insights there from you, Kevin, that is important for people to know about. I think even I learned a few things there. For sure.
Glad I can teach you something, Matthew.
That was great. Thank you. All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us, Kevin. Really appreciate your time on the show.
My pleasure. And look, if anybody has any questions, they can reach out on social to me. It's just at Kevin Sprecher or on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or anything. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Perfect. That was my next line. Where can people get you? So that's perfect. We'll also, in the description on the podcast, and then when we post it on social, we'll put your details. We'll put your Twitter handle and Facebook and all of that. So if people do have questions, they can contact you directly. So that'll be sweet.
I appreciate it.
All right. Well, to keep up to date with us, you can subscribe to our mailing list at gltgolf.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And you can also follow us on YouTube, and you can watch this. I'm pretty sure we all have a face for, or me and you do certainly. We have a face for the radio, Rick, not for the TV screen. So you can check us out on YouTube. Hope you enjoy the show. Thanks, and we'll see you again soon.
Cool.
Sweet. Thanks, Kevin.